Mandrake,
Yes, Jack?
have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water?
Well, no, I don't say I have, Jack.
Vodka. That's what they drink, isn't it? Never water.
Well, I believe that's what they drink, Jack, yes.
On no account will a commie ever drink water, and not without good reason.
Oh, yes. I don't quite see what you're getting at, Jack.
Water. That's what I'm getting at, water. Mandrake, water is the source of all life. 7/10 of this Earth's surface is water. Why, do you realize that 70% of you is water?
Oh, Lord.
And as human beings, you and I need fresh, pure water to replenish our precious bodily fluids.
Yes.
Are you beginning to understand?
Yes.
Mandrake. Mandrake, have you never wondered why I drink only distilled water or rainwater and only pure grain alcohol?
Well, it did occur to me, Jack, yes.
Have you ever heard of a thing called fluoridation? Fluoridation of water?
Yes, I have heard of that, Jack, yes. Yes.
Well, you know what it is?
No, I don't know what it is now.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face?
Well, one of the main reasons water is so bad here in the States is because they put fluoride in the water. Yeah, there are men who literally put on hazmat suits because if they touch the substance, they will die. And they pump this in our water. They convinced us that there are and that the fluoride is good for our teeth. So without any dissension, we drink it up. Now, see, the only problem with that is that it's not good for teeth or human consumption, period. It's toxic. It calcifies the pineal gland. It's been proven to lower the IQ of children. It's been proven to be cancerous and the cause for various ailments. What's even worse is that's not even the only thing that they put in the water that's not good for us. As most people know, they put chlorine in the water to kill bacteria. But, of course, that also has adverse effects. There's also lead and arsenic and other contaminants in the water that are there as a result of very bad corporate decisions. There's also pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and things that run off into our water systems. That's why I've been literally making my own devices, conducting experiments, and consulting people who understand the issue at hand. But for something immediate that really works, this might not be a do-it-yourself job. And so I met with a specialist from Connecticut that allowed me to film him, and we're going to talk about some things and why I'm considering filtration, and why you might want to as well.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, my name is Michael. I'm a water testing specialist. We are Home Depot service provider, and I represent a company called Connecticut, which is the top-rated consumer report company in the United States. And we're here with Andrew Drew to test his water, and I explain what's going on. Okay, we're located in New York City. So New York City sends out the report, quality report, for all the homeowners. They can go to library or dep.org,
Right.
and all the languages they say everything is okay with water. Translate it and read it, and don't tell us that we didn't warn you what's going on. Out of big city water ratings, out of 150 biggest cities, New York is not number one, like some people
A lot of
think.
people have told us.
Yeah. We are number 41,
Right.
which is not the worst, but not the best either.
Maybe they mean that the New York water is the best tasting.
No, it's not because of that. It's just because every frog, bribes about her swamp. Because you go to Maine, they're gonna swear they have the best water. You go to Pocono, they say no, we have the best water. Alaska, people are gonna laugh. I'm like, we have wilderness, we have the best water.
Right.
So, but if you go by the facts, you have to understand that our water comes from all the way from upstate, hundreds of miles away. By the time the water travels all the way to New York City, and Staten Island is kind of like in the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the water, they say the water may contain have contaminants like including microbiological contaminants and organic contaminants, pesticides, herbicides, organic contaminants, and even radioactive contaminants.
Radioactive contaminants.
Yes. Why do you think they mention this? It's in our water,
Right.
and they have to disclose it. Now, whatever the millions of cars put pollution, they don't put flour dust in the air. You have all these things come up, eventually go down. Pesticides, herbicides, pharmaceuticals, people pee out, and stuff like that. Everything doesn't go, nothing goes to space. Everything stays on the planet. By the time it collects, like from the dumps, former garbage dumps, and it gets into aquifers, the water has to travel through Delaware Aqueduct, which is the water tunnel tube, which been around for almost 150 years, 150 years old. Rain, water, rats, mice, pooping, dying inside they're building the new one. Remember the Bruce Willis driving? That was the new one they were building. Okay, that's how big it is. That you can fit the truck inside this thing.
Wow.
But the water travels through this, and obviously the water, in order for the water, like this is regular tap water. I got 3 samples of tap water and the other water. Like if I ask you, does this water look clear to you?
Yeah.
Like to your eyes?
To the visible eye, yeah.
Yeah, you see the bottom. I brought with me a sample of the water that we know it's pure. We call it H2O. If I put them side by side, take a look. Well, because what happens when the water travels through the tunnels and stuff like that, they have to treat it, and the water goes through treatment plant, and they use not candy, they use harsh chemical, like 7, 8 different, like aluminum sulfide, sodium chloride, fluoride, bromine, and so on. Because their number one priority, not us, to protect the main pipes of New York City, because they cannot replace them until they completely rotten out. So they trying to drag it as long as possible.
So you're saying the chemicals that they put in there are not necessarily for keeping the water clean.
No,
it's to protect the pipe.
Protect the pipes, yes, mostly. Imagine this is a water New York City water mains.
Wow.
Imagine your soup traveling 100 miles through the pipe like this. Would you eat that soup?
Absolutely.
Probably not. Well, a lot of people don't realize that it has to go from house to house, boiler to boiler, pipe to pipe. And one of the biggest mistake people said, because New York City does have elevated level of lead once in a while, depending on the building, how old it is. You can have a brand new home, but you are connected to the water main, and they're not going to replace it until it's completely right now.
So they know that there's a lot of lead in the water.
Yes, because up to 1986 they were using lead to solder pipes together. So, and that's why New York City says, and one of the most common mistake people do, they say, I don't drink tap water, I boil it. Well, boiling actually makes the water worse, not better. Because like I said, in the 19th century, there was no chemicals, and you boil the water and it kills bacteria and it's safe. Now that you have a lead, you see 311, they say, do not boil water to remove lead. Boiling will not remove lead, it will actually concentrate it.
Wow.
So what happens is when the water boils, the steam, it's a distilled water evaporating and leaving the pot.
Yeah.
And all the chemicals concentrate, and the more we boil it, the more concentrated it becomes. So when we're going to test your boiled water, even if it's after filtration, you'll see that this is actually going to be your worst water in the house.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, when the water travels through the water tunnels with rats and mice, and the water comes from the lake where fish pooping and dying and stuff, obviously we don't want to have epidemics. So do me a favor, try a little sip of this water first. This is filtered water.
Okay.
And try a little bit of this, because we
I
don't have
don't really
to
drink tap water.
well, just a sip, for the experiment sake. And try a little bit of tap water, just to compare.
The first time in a long time.
Well, you think so, but you do.
It tastes
It's like a little chemically a little
Yeah.
bit. Like some people refer it as a heavy taste. Now, I can get used to a lot of things. If I cross Gutless Bridge, you know how it stinks there?
Yeah.
People live there. They're like, I don't smell it. They get used to it. Like you go into the public bathroom, first it stinks. After a few minutes, it smells like roses. You get used to it. Now, what you felt there, it's mostly chlorine and disinfectants. Do you know what chlorine does? Why they add chlorine to the water?
To kill the bacteria.
Yeah, the key word is kill living organism and bacteria. You and I are living organism, and even the cat. Do we have bacteria for digestion? in our stomach?
Yes.
Do you think chlorine right now cares what you have inside?
No.
It's there to kill everything. This is the pool test. I'm just gonna grab the paper towel.
Okay.
This is the pool test. You know how if we swim in the swimming pool, we smell chlorine because it's an open surface, and the chlorine evaporates constantly. So they have to constantly add chlorine into the water. So if you go to Home Depot or Pool Supply, they sell a test kit for the pool. You see, it says to check how much chlorine in the pool.
Okay.
They say this is when you add chlorine. This is ideal. This is way too much. I'm putting 5 drops. This is what it says. Add 5 drops chlorine test solution,
Okay.
which will, if there is a chlorine, it will turn it yellow, and depending on the scale, that's how much chlorine you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is filtered water, and this is not filtered.
Okay.
The one that has chlorine, the water starts to react. The one that doesn't,
Oh wow.
nothing.
The
happens.
tap water is getting yellow.
Yeah, it's getting yellow. Yeah, I know you don't see this chlorine in here, right?
Which one is that?
This is also tap water.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
do me a favor, stick your fingers inside, like 3, 4 fingers all the way down. Like, and hold it there. Just imagine you're doing manicure. Okay, the reason why I ask you to do this, because if you go to DEP report, New York State require following statement. People who drank chlorinated drinking water for 20, 30 years shows it's associated with increase of certain types of cancer, liver, kidney, nervous system, and ability to bear healthy offspring. Why do you think New York states that? Have you been drinking 20 years?
Yeah.
Will you be drinking for 20 years?
Yeah.
Hospitals not empty? Cemetery full of people?
Yep.
As long as they disclose it, you can't sue them in case if in the future you get sick, because it's a disclosure.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you see the color-wise, like this is when you add, this is ideal, this is way too much. If I look at it, it says like somewhat ideal, right? The only problem is this is the test for the pool.
Oh, this is that color?
Yeah, it's ideal for the pool.
not for drinking.
Yeah. Well, when is the last time you came up to the pool and started cooking?
Right.
Now, you buy organic food, vegetables. You say you don't drink tap water, but you do. Because what happens, every time when you take a shower, okay, your skin is the biggest organ that we have.
Right.
And every time when we take a shower, if the water is not filtered, I know you mentioned that you do have a filter, but a lot of people don't. This is Dr. Oz.
What people don't recognize, and this is perhaps the most important thing I'm going to say today, because a lot of you know there's a problem here. You don't recognize you've got a problem here, which is the water we bathe in and shower in. Now, tell moms right now, and I don't want to hedge on this, I don't think you should be bathing your kids in the tub unless you know that water's clean. Because what ends up happening is the water's got chlorine in it, chloroform, other chemicals and byproducts get into the water. It's warm. That opens up the pores of the child. Child bathes in the water. All those chemicals get absorbed through the skin because the skin is very absorptive, and your child therefore is being contaminated.
They're very low in concentration. On the other hand, we have to be concerned because there's a mixture of these drugs that we're being exposed to in drinking water, and so that's some cause for concern.
So in other words, millions of people who take medicine, we pee it out. Where does it go? We all live downstream from somebody. Nothing goes to space. If it's enough for male fish to turn female, who knows how it's affecting a child when they're developing hormones and so on.
This breaks way into a whole different discussion.
Do you know how many water supplies in the country filter out pharmaceutical out of sewage?
No.
Zero.
Yeah.
Nobody. So when I was growing up, the word allergies didn't exist. We didn't know what allergy was. Like, now it's everywhere because there's chemicals here and there. Pharmaceuticals. 41 million Americans drinking water with their medicine inside. And over a long period of time, nobody knows how to say. You're drinking your water and there's somebody else's medicine. That filter, there's a shower filter doesn't remove it. The biggest problem, and this is the most important thing we're trying to educate people, they check each chemical individually. They don't tell us how they work all together. For example, I saw the liquor store on the corner right now. Okay, if I drink a simple wine and the cop pulls me over, he can arrest me for simple wine, correct? What if I drink simple wine, simple vodka, simple cognac, champagne, whiskey, marijuana, and all of it, whatever they have in the store? Will I be drunk? Yeah. Will I go to jail? But individually. You understand? Together, nobody tells you how it's affected. And with age, only cognac and wine become better.
This point you've seen the video. I wanted to use that video as like a precursor to get, you know, the whole understanding really. There's really not left, you know, anything new left to say. But I did want to kind of back that information up with, you know, some articles. Also leave you with some information that can empower you and that you can use in, you know, getting better, trying to fix what's been broken, right? So right now we're at the NRDC, and this is a national government-funded agency. You can look up what it means, what have you. But here's their article, right? And it says, what's in your drinking water? Safe drinking water is something we Americans tend to take for granted until a crisis like lead contamination in Flint, Michigan makes us wonder what chemicals could be lurking in our taps. Now, I did use Flint, Michigan on purpose. I also did use the video about New York on purpose. And I actually have another article we're going to look at the end of this thing, and I think that's based off California. So with that, I want us to focus on the fact that it speaks of Americans, right? It's not one state, it's not one city. They're literally okay with killing us all and our babies. So we read, Flint was a wake-up call for Americans, but it's not the only place in the United States with with tap water problems, says Eric Olson, director of NRDC's health program. Thousands of other cities and small towns across the country are serving water with lead and other contamination problems to millions of people. So he's saying everybody, right? The NRDC health team has fought to protect drinking water both locally and nationally for decades. In fact, Lynn Thorpe, National Campaign Director for the nonprofit organization Clean Water Action, says NRDC has been the group's most valued partner in the efforts to enforce the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. Together, we've been a watchdog for the public in every stage of implementation and for all the many parts of law, she says. Sounds good, right? And, you know, they could very well have their good, you know, good in mind, but if you want to be true, this type of stuff should be on mainstream news. People shouldn't have to search for this information. And, you know, to me, bro, it just seems like, you know, they throw you a bone, but they have a way of not making it taste so good, right? So I kind of skipped down, as you can see, and it says not just about lead. All public water suppliers in the United States are required to uphold certain levels of water quality, right? As long as these requirements are met, Olson said, most Americans can drink the local tap water without worry. Still, violations remain widespread, and some water systems have contaminants that aren't regulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So, while they have this standard in place, this standard, they have standards in place, right? But when you start to question and dig into these things, you notice that their standards are subpar, right? So you have to ask yourself, you know, like they say they're working for your good, but then how good is their good? You know what I mean? According to the new NRDC report, nearly 77 million Americans got drinking water from systems that violate federal protections in 2015. And more than a third of this number relied on systems that did not comply with standards put in place to protect health. Huh. That sounds like a class action lawsuit, right? Like, why is this stuff not happening? Oh, they have lobbyists and profit margins. Hey, industry, bro. Can't just uproot a whole industry, bro. That's uncomfortable. But you're killing people, fam. Right? Reading on. Millions of other Americans' water suppliers failed to test water safety properly and didn't report test results to health authorities or customers. potentially sweeping many more health risks under the rug. You know, in times like this, bro, you know, it's maddening, but right here I think is a good time to remember that, you know, our Father sits high and he looks low. There's nothing that goes unseen and won't be recompensed, right? So, you know, all we can do is try to protect us and our families. I don't bring this stuff out to riot. I really don't. This is awareness here, man. Fight, you know, and what I mean by fight is don't let them treat you as if, you know, like, become aware and act like you know. When you know better, you do better, right? These numbers likely understate the extent of the problem, given underreporting and the fact that many contaminants aren't even monitored or regulated. Wow. You have to understand that we're speaking about America, and, you know, specifically, like, I feel like this is a global issue, right? But for America specifically, you know, they proud to be an American, right? And, you know, we're supposed to be this whole high-tech environment. You know, you want to be out here be splicing lions and tigers together, but, you know, a very basic need, which is water, we seem to just, you know, it can't get that right. You know, if you can't major in minors, bro, then you really shouldn't be trying to major in anything, right? And I feel like water is like the most basic of it all. You know, we're not talking about food and its contamination and its trickery and violations of us. We're talking about water here, right? Keep that in mind. But because they aren't regulated by the EPA, they don't show up in these already staggering figures, right? So even what they test for is enough to overhaul and revamp and you know, do better, right? I think I skipped because I wanted to touch on this. For instance, one of the things they don't test for, right? For instance, common contaminants such as perchlorate, chemical cousins of Teflon. They're not testing for this. You know what I'm saying? We're drinking Teflon out here, bro. Anyway, sensitive groups like pregnant women and children are at a higher risk for health complications, especially from the following contaminants. Okay? So here we're going to touch on this list, which is why I really like this article, because it kind of goes in, you know what I'm saying, it gives you a summary of each thing in its way. So, number one is lead. Likely the most famous bad guy. This heavy metal can leach from lead pipes and plumbing fixtures, especially when the water flowing through them is corrosive. It can cause neurological and behavioral problems in children and adverse health effects in adults. So, as we seen in the clip earlier, the guy mentioned that there was no allergies when he grew up. But, you know, what he didn't mention, and something that we can all relate to, is a new thing called like ADHD, and having to put your kids on Xanax so they'll sit still, right? All these things, all this stuff is new, it's foreign, right? Even eczema, asthma, you feel me? All these things are new, it's foreign to later generation, or, you know, generations before us. And you know, at some point I feel like, you know, we should ask ourselves why. How does this come about, right? How are we supposed to be advancing? We're supposed to be getting hover cars soon, and cars that drive by themselves, and, you know, becoming part robot, when, you know, our bodies in themselves are living testaments as the fact that we're going the wrong direction. So, you know, who do you believe, right? Where am I at? It's a more common problem in cities with older water systems. NRDC Health Team scientist Christy Paulin Fretnick says, but what a lot of people don't realize is that even relatively new brass fixtures and faucets can still contain significant amounts of lead. Just because your home is less than 20 years old doesn't necessarily mean you're lead free. Why? Because we're all connected to the same old piping, right? Atrazine, this endocrine disrupting chemical, is one of the most commonly detected pesticide in U.S. waters. Pesticides, bro. We shouldn't be using pesticides, let alone in our waters, right? We don't think about the runoff, the drift, right? Like, none of this even enters our brain because, hey, the EPA said it's safe, United States said it's safe, FDA said it's safe, right? Not realizing these people care nothing about your safety. They care everything about the profit. And what's so absurd to me with that, as we read this stuff, bro, realize that they're affecting them and their kids too. They drink water. They may have more steps that they go through, whoop-de-whoop, right? But nobody comes out of this thing clean. And it's beyond me. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, NRDC studies have found its contamination is most common in drinking water across the Midwest and southern United States. The EPA currently monitors a sample of community water systems to determine its atrazine concentration pose a risk to public health. But NRDC has called on the government to phase out the use of this chemical entirely, right? Which sounds good, but you know, we'll see how that goes, right? I bet you it doesn't go because, hey, there's not enough people that care about this stuff, to be honest, bro. We as a society, if we can stick together on anything, bro, we can make some moves, bro. We can make some changes, but everybody's so divided amongst each other, we don't even see the enemy that's laughing at us all. You know what I'm saying? We worried about who's black and who's white and who's rich and who's poor when, hell, honestly, bro, they don't really care. They're just trying to kill you and make as much money off you until you die. It's really what it is. Hence birth certificates and all that madness, right? You can see one of my previous videos about that. Pathogens, right? Bacteria, viruses, and parasites that cause illness can find their way into water supplies that are inadequately treated to kill germs. Fortunately, these pathogens are much better controlled today than they once were. Right, sure, right. After a 1993 waterborne disease outbreak in Milwaukee sickened more than 400,000 people. Understand, they just dated back to 1993, but yet we still fighting to get certain things corrected in 2015. And this article, I believe, is going to even mention things that's going on with our water in 2019, right? Disease outbreak in Milwaukee sickened more than 400,000 people. Olson says NRDC really led the charge in changing the EPA rules and safeguards, but clearly much more remains to be done, right? You know, I'm not gonna try not to bash these people too much because at least they're trying to do something, and I understand that they're fighting a giant of a beast, right? So, you know, I just pray that our Father wills, His will is done, right? Whatever that may be. All we can do is educate ourselves and try to be better with what we got, right? Chlorine treatment by products. Chemicals used in drinking water's disinfection process, such as, man, don't even do me like that. Trihalomethanes and hallucinate acids. Yeah, I tried. May cause cancer and reproductive problems if present in high qualities, which the guy touched on with the chlorine, right? And we know that there's high quality because he tested it and it showed it was ideal for a pool. We're drinking pool water, right? Sheesh. Arsenic. The EPA estimated in 2000 that nearly 36 million Americans drank water containing arsenic at an above 3 parts per billion. The level NRDC had urged to be established as drinking water standard. But you gotta understand that there's no good amount of arsenic, bro. There's no good amount of acid, bro. You don't drink a good amount of dang it, the fluid you put in your radiator, antifreeze. You don't take a teaspoon of Clorox, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like these people, Anyway, the EPA has delayed updating the arsenic standard that are originally issued in the 1960s. Bro, but we finally got them to relent and update the arsenic numbers based on modern science in the early 2000s, Olson says. Since then, arsenic levels across the country have declined as a result. He adds, but the contaminant is still worth looking out for. Sure, absolutely, I agree. Nitrates. Though nitrates occur naturally in plants and soil at low concentrations, they have become a widespread contaminant due in part to their use as fertilizer, so runoff, drift. There it is. Runoff from factory flows flow into surface and groundwater and ends up in our drinking water. The EPA set a limit of 10 parts per billion for nitrates, which can be harmful to pregnant women and infants. We do have those, correct? I just hate the way they do this stuff, like 10 parts per million. Like, they actually have it to where the EPA says there's a acceptable amount of feces they can find on your food. Like, what? Like, maddening, bro. If I didn't pray, bro, I could see very well how, people get to the point of wanting to call for uprising. But, we have to remember that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through our Elohim, through our Father, through our Creator. You know what I'm saying? To the pulling down of strongholds, to the casting out of devils, right? That's how we fight. You know what I'm saying? We fast, we pray, we submit to His word, we seek His face, which is our righteousness, which is our wisdom, right? My message doesn't change, bro. That's what we must do. You want to get mad, bro, get mad at you, because the whole reason the devil succeeded is because we chose to be disobedient. As I read on. In rare cases, exposed infants can develop blue baby syndrome and potentially fatal illness that prevents the blood from carrying oxygen. Right? Radioactive contaminants. Most radioactive elements found in drinking water occur naturally, but radioactive material from the production of nuclear weapons, energy, and medicines can also get into drinking supply through leaks and improper waste storage. Exposure can cause cancer and kidney failure. Understand that improper waste storage, you have to look at the words and kind of create this picture in your brain, right? So this improper waste storage, right? You have to think about that. How do you get that? Well, you get that through industry, right? Like I was looking at a documentary, I can't quote it, please forgive me, but the guy was talking about how they would take waste from a paper factory and just dump it in the river, the closest river. So you have to understand that is then processed through the water system and whatnot, and it ends up in our pipes, it ends up in our glasses, and it ends up in our bodies, right? So all this stuff is really a failure of righteousness. It's a failure to adhere to what's moral, right? A long time ago, it seems like legal and moral stopped dating, right? And then they tried to mix church and state to convolute what's righteous and make all these different gray areas, and we just go along with it because, hey, it's comfortable. This is what we used to. You know what I mean? Because I'm not crazy. I understand to exit a system that you've become accustomed to requires work, right? But then you can meet a millionaire, and he's going to tell you, man, a lot of times, unless he was born in, what have you, but most times, all right, let's not even take millionaire. Let's take being married, having a child, buying a car, buying a house. It's uncomfortable. You have to get into that area of uncertainty, and then as you live, you realize and you look back and you find yourself stronger because of it. And I don't think the rules have changed in this circumstance as far as the system, right, and its wickedness, and the fact that it doesn't care about any of us, bro. But where am I at? Yeah, exposure can cause cancer and kidney failure. And so now we're here. Vinyl chloride used as PVC plastic products, and plastic in itself shouldn't exist, or it could exist, but they don't make it out of plants. They do the non-biodegradable. Why? Because it's cheaper. It's always about profit, overhead, industry, efficiency, all that. No one cares about health or moral, right? None of that matters. Integrity, none of that matters, bro. How much money I'm gonna make, fam, right? Such as some pipes. The cancer-causing contaminants can leak from older PVC piping and has been found in drinking water of a small number of communities across the country. And there goes that word again, doggone Teflon's cousin, right? This widespread toxic chemical used in rocket fuel, explosives, and road flares can interfere with thyroid hormone production. Teflon's cousin has been detected detected in the water in at least 26 states, yet there is no federal standard for its presence in drinking water. And in 2011, okay, yeah, remember I said 2019. Anyway, after more than a decade of pressure from environmental and health groups led by NRDC, the EPA announced that it should set such a standard because it still hasn't even proposed a rule for the contaminant. After NRDC threatened their money, filed a lawsuit against the EPA for its failure to act in the time frame allotted by the Safe Drinking Water Act, the agency committed in a consent decree in late 2016 to get a proposed Teflon cousin standard out in 2018 and a final standard by 2019. So understand what they had to do. They had to threaten these people money, bro. That's what I feel we should do, bro. We should boycott, right? We gotta fight, bro. And the only way they gonna understand is if we fight their pocketbooks, fam. That's the only thing these people understand. You know what I'm saying? I feel like these people are on autopilot and full of demons, right? And with that, bro, you know, they don't even think. They're no longer logical, right? They're reprobate. So the only thing you can do is hit them where it hurts for them, and that would be their pocketbooks. You can't try to play on what's what's right, human ethics, none of that. Nope. Hit them in their pocketbook, or expect to die, and expect your kids to die sooner than you did. You know what I'm saying? If they even be able to live, because the way they're affecting us makes us reproduce with birth defects, which is why I brought up, the asthma, the ADHD, all these malfunctions that we have. Which, sidebar, if you look at it, bro, even generation to generation, right? Every time we reproduce, we lose DNA, right? We're a little bit less pure than we was from Adam, right? Which is a direct slug at the theory of evolution, right? DNA itself denies that evolution is a thing. But, hey, that's not what we're talking about right now. And the last but not least is these pharmaceuticals, right? Prescription drugs enter our water supply when patients release traces in their urine and flat out flush unused medications under the sink or toilet. NRDC has petitioned the FDA to pay more attention to medicines making their way into the environment, and a 2010 NRDC report provide recommendations for reducing the flow of these drugs into our waters. Now, with that, bro, some things you want to consider. Why is it that it's a problem for it to end up in our water the second time, but it's okay to end up in our body the first time, right? Good question if you ask me. Furthermore, look into, or actually I made a video about it. I'll post it eventually. Like what's in your pill, right? What are these pills made of, and stuff like that. So why do they even exist? Why is this medicine even here? What is pharmaceuticals? And every word you look up for pharmaceutical, it goes back to something evil. Pharmakia is sorcery, and pharmakai or whatever, something like that is alchemy. You know what I mean? This stuff is wicked, bro. It ain't no way around it, bro. And as I always say, I'm pointing out the devil that you may find our Father, right? God, as many call him. I know him as Yah, Hallelujah, Kumbaya, right? Yah, Yahuwah, the Most High, right? Our Creator, the one who created the heavens and the earth, and by him all things exist. Yeah, he is grand. So I pray that y'all find him. With that, man, I'm gonna say shalom. You know me, man. I try not to hang around too long. I pray that this stuff helps us, man. And till next time, man. Oh no, actually, bro, abort. I did want to look at this too. Give y'all something to empower yourselves with. And this is 4 signs there's something wrong with your tap water, right? And this is California, right? Okay. It looks cloudy, right? Tap water that has been properly cleaned should always look clear. If the water looks cloudy or milky, don't use it. Alright, simple as that. They call it hard water. Contains heavy minerals. So that's that heady taste that the man was talking about. and it goes into this. It tastes like metallic, right? If it tastes funny, it look like this, it's probably not what you want to touch on. It's bad piping, it's poor processing, and it's still full of all types of chemicals, which we just went through. Smells. Treated tap water should never smell. If it does, then it probably means something in your water that shouldn't be, huh? Okay. Just kind of summarizing this, man. Y'all can come back and look at this. You see the links, you know, and all that. If it leaves stains and scum behind, tap water should never leave behind any sort of residue or stain. Okay. So, there it is, man. This is not an exhaustive list of anything that could be wrong with your tap water. If you don't see a problem here, it doesn't mean you don't have a problem. Don't panic, but don't ignore your suspicions either. The sooner you get closure about your possible water problem, the better you'll feel. My sentiments exactly, my brother. So yeah, with that, man, I love y'all, bro. Till next time. Yo.